parents of high schoolers with learning differences, it's totally possible for you to help your student adapt their test prep plan for the ACT or the SAT to their unique learning needs, just like a specialized tutor would do. In this short video, I'm going to show you the framework and the method that I use with my students to help them prep for the test, so that you can use it with your high schooler at home, help them adapt their study plan, and get great results on the SAT or the ACT. So I use a worksheet with my students to do this when I sit down and do it with their families. So you're going to need a pen and paper. If you would like to use this worksheet instead, I'm happy to send it along to you. Just drop me a line below and I'll send it along via messenger so you can follow along. If you don't know who I am, my name is Jonah Fishel and I run Next Step Prep. I've helped hundreds of high schoolers with learning differences reach scores on the test that they didn't think were possible. And I do that by first convincing them that it is possible and then showing them exactly how to do it. So by the end of this video, you're going to understand the framework and the method that I use to help my students understand where their learning differences affect their test prep and what we can do about it to adapt the test prep to them. So here's how it works. The key thing to understand is that test prep is not really like learning at school. It's more like understanding a few basic tasks and getting consistently good at performing them. And the consistency is the key part. So the way that we do that is we understand exactly, because the test is very predictable, we understand exactly and we are able to predict the problems that they're having on test day. And then we fix those and then we have them immediately test again and practice again to see how those problems are disappearing and how they're phasing out. And we just keep doing that, analyzing the problems that they're having and then fixing them and then testing them again until you hit the goal score that you want. That's all there is to it, actually. And so the framework that I use for this is called error analysis. It's a very powerful tool for understanding exactly what's happening on test day or on a practice test where they're getting questions wrong. So what it is understanding why we make mistakes. And there's 3 reasons that you could get a question wrong on the ACT or the SAT. Number 1 is what I call a silly mistake. A silly mistake is like loss of focus, loss of attention, skipping a word, something little where you know they know how to do the question and they know that they know how to do it. And it was just like a little thing went wrong. Forgetting a minus sign, adding when they should have multiplied, skipping a word, something like that. Number 2 is what I call an honest mistake. This is a little bit more complicated. It's where they know how to do the question, or they think that they do, or they think they know how to solve, but something went wrong anyway. There's something wrong either in the process of them solving or in them understanding what the question is asking. And then the last one is a clueless mistake, which is they just don't know how to do it. So it could be math that they're not exposed to, it could be a word that they don't know the definition of. It's something like that. Now the reason that we do this is because we have to address each one of these problems in a different way. And depending on who the student is and their history and their learner profile and everything, they're going to have different rates of occurrences of these on different parts of the test and different tests. So we need to understand why these are happening. So for example, a student with like a attention disorder, ADHD or ADD, tends to make more silly mistakes than other students because they're losing attention or they're losing the task at hand or they're having problems with timing or something that causes them to make more silly mistakes. Whereas a student with like a processing disorder like dyslexia or dysgraphia, dyscalculia, they're going to have more type 2 errors because they're having trouble actually interpreting the question, reading it, understanding what it's asking of them. This is also true for autistic students who may have trouble understanding if the question is inferring something that it wants them to do, but it's not outright stating it. They sometimes have trouble understanding what the question actually wants them to do because it doesn't directly state it. So they may make more type 2 errors as well. And then just like anyone who is having trouble in school, they're not getting the support they need, they're falling behind in class, they're going to make type 3 errors because they just haven't learned the material yet. So what you're going to do is sit down with your pen and paper or with your worksheet, and you're going to get a practice test that your student has done recently where the answers are marked right or wrong. You're going to sit down with them, it's going to take like an hour, and you're going to look at every single question that is wrong, and you're going to understand why together. You're going to decide if it's a type 1 silly mistake, type 2 honest mistake, or a type 3 clueless mistake, and you're going to record it. So if you got question 2 wrong on the math because of a silly mistake, you're going to write under math 2 for silly mistake. If you got question 17 wrong because of an honest mistake, you're going to write it in the right box. And we're sorting every single question you got wrong and why so that we can look for patterns. So look at the patterns we find here. we see that this student is having trouble with clueless mistakes in the math, but with silly mistakes in the English. And that means we can adjust our approach to exactly what's happening there. And this is how we adjust the approach. So once you know what the problems are and the patterns you're looking for, you can adjust what you're doing for test prep in order to handle that. So if you're having the most type 1 errors, what they need to do on that section is to focus on things like finishing in time, pacing themselves, getting the timing right and the cadence of the section down more than anything else. So they can use shortcuts for that, they can use tricks, they can watch the clock. There's lots of videos on how to do that, but that is the most important thing they can do to raise their score. If instead they're having more type 2 errors, then they need to do hyper-targeted practice on that exact type of problem that they're not understanding or that they're missing. So they need to understand what's going wrong on it and how to spot that type of question, and then they just need to drill it like a lot of times. I usually am happy if they can answer 5 in a row of that exact type of question with perfect accuracy. I feel like they've conquered that problem and they'll be able to spot it on the test. And then if they're having type 3 errors, they just need to learn more stuff. They need to learn the content. And the best way to do that is to talk to a teacher or a tutor or a friend who knows what they're doing and just figure out what topics they need help on and address that. So what you're going to do is take your worksheet and take the things that you learned, and you're going to adjust the test prep approach every single week. So you're learning new content, you're doing the right type of targeted practice, you're doing the right type of timing and pacing strategies to address what the problem of the week is. And then as it changes, you do more error analysis and you adjust your approach again. And that way, as your child is learning and changing and getting better at the test, you're reacting appropriately. So that is how a tutor is going to do a specialized test prep program for someone with learning differences. That's how I do it. I've been doing it for 10 years. So I hope this helps you do the same thing and that you can help your student prep at home. Again, if you want this worksheet to work through with them, I'm happy to send that to you. I have some instructions to go with it and a recap of everything we talked about here. And then of course, the blank one, so you can do it yourself. So just drop a line below if you want that and I'll send it along.